Hello everyone and welcome back to another stream from Maman Talks NRL SuperCoach, here to preview round 17. Finally, not either a major or mini bye round. We've got a normal bye round this week, although it's come with a bit of carnage. We've got the Sydney Roosters on the bye, who are pretty relevant for SuperCoach. A few outs as well in Jaden Campbell, Hudson Young as well, a bit of a blow for other owners who've gone early on him, but plenty to get into. Round 18, of course, is on the cusp, the next and final major bye round, as we start looking ahead to how do we fill our teams up with the premium gun options, the season keepers, the run home targets, all of that good stuff. But great to see so many people already in the chat, 73 of you, which is awesome. Please do give the stream a like as well, guys, if you do enjoy it as well. Always does help me out. Give the stream a like. Subscribe as well if you're new around here as well. But give a few shout outs to people in the chat. Martin Lau, probably the GOAT of the channel, I must say. Good to see you. At one stage, I had like 8 great centers to fill up my 7 spots, but now I can barely pick 5. Any thoughts on which 7 for the run home? I do have a section on what I think is potentially the best run home squad, so we'll definitely get into that. Hello to Michael Byers, John, Die Harder, great movie, Romeo, Anthony, Jason Yang, as always. Aman, when can we expect a hair tutorial YouTube channel? There'll be no separate YouTube channel. I'll probably run out in about 2 videos. But as I say to everyone, the secret is it's a bit gross, but don't use shampoo conditioner that often because it really stuffs up your hair and dries it out. You gotta let them natural oils keep your hair nice and shiny and healthy. That's my one tip. So anyway, that's all I can really say about that. And of course, don't scratch your head too much, otherwise you'll start rubbing the hair out of your head. I wanted to quickly address this question from Romeo, just because I had a quick think about it and I had an answer. He was asking, do I pick a Lomax or Haas this week? I actually think ideally you'd get Haas in terms of better output play for the rest of the year. But for timing, I'd get Lomax because Haas will miss 18, may miss 19 with the backup, and then he has a bye around 20. At least Lomax, if he backs up round 19, he's got no more buys. So I think with Haas, you may have to just be able to wait an extra week and get him in like round 21, maybe, if you were buying one of those two. But anyway, quick question answer just from the get-go. 1-0 to the Arsenal. I'll take that as an Arsenal fan. For Fantasy Premier League, I think the fixtures are out as well for the Premier League. So once the season's wrapped up for SuperCoach, I'll be definitely getting stuck back into fantasy. Davey K, good to see you as well. Made it finally after so long. Kez G, great to see so many familiar names in the chat as well, which is awesome. So let's get stuck into everything. So first off, quick rank update. Last week was finally a good week for myself. It feels like it's been a while coming, but yes, ended up on 1430. Got a bit lucky. So I've had a bit of luck in the last couple of weeks. So round 16, I decided on selling Cleary instead of Munster. If you guys were aware, I was thinking of going either Cleary to Hines or Munster to Campbell. In the end, I decided Cleary just because I thought his chances of backing up were a little bit lower than Munster. And in round 15, Hines was a more scary non-own due to his matchup against the Dragons. In that particular week, it didn't really matter so much. Hines didn't do that well, but Hines did well last week. And of course, we've got this update on Cleary battling this groin niggle. He may not even goal kick, so I feel a bit more comfortable selling him and not having to buy him back straight away. And in the end, Munster backed up round 16, so I could hold him. And of course, Jaden Campbell only scored like 8 points and then is missing out this week. So one decision there has really worked in my favor in terms of not having to cop Campbell last week, because he was pretty highly owned, like 50% in the higher ranked coaches. So missed him, which was thankful for me. And for this week as well, he's out this week and coming up against this Cowboys team, he was a scary non-own. So I've gotten lucky in that particular decision. And last week was just a good week. None of my players really went that poorly. I think Hughes was my lowest scorer with 45, I think. And I captained Teddy, finally brought him in. So last week was a good week. Just hoping for a few more of those good rounds. I'll take many more of them if I can. But very happy with that. Sitting at about rank 3,500 now. So very happy to get that big green arrow. Let's just keep it going, shall we? Davey K, that's a super score. Yes, thank you. It was good. And quick shout out to the league as well. I actually don't have it up in front of me, but I believe we did previously have the number 1 rank overall leader. I think they've slipped down to maybe number 5 in rank. I'm just going to quickly double check this before I start talking rubbish. He's currently ranked 5th. He scored 1300s. This is Scott. He's currently ranked 5th. We also have Harrison ranked in 10th, and we also have Justin ranked at 11th. So we've got a few guys in the upper echelons there. Just yeah, good luck to all of you. And shout out as well to Justin, who's 11th overall. He scored 1475 and he went up 34 spots. So that's a huge increase on his ranking for this week. So yeah, shout out to you guys out there. Yeah, in terms of trades as well, I was sitting on 14 trades. I've already used one trade. Fletcher Sharp is an obvious sell. So for me, yeah, Fletcher Sharp has gone out. So that's already one trade I've used this week. Probably will use a second. So I'll be sitting on about 12 trades after this week. Davey K, you've got 19 trades and 2 boosts left. I don't know how you've lasted this long having 2 boosts. I think I used all of my boosts by round 8. But yeah, credit to you for sticking strong and being a bit sensible with not firing all your trades off as well. So let's quickly get into the round 17 TLT wrap up. There is a fair amount to get through, so let's quickly rattle through this. So for Penrith, Cleary has been named as well as all of the other Origin players. Scotty Sorensen out for 2 weeks with a suspension. Lockie Galvin on the bench still for the Bulldogs. They're sticking strong with Burton and Toby Sexton as their halves. Stephen Crichton, Max King are also back, and Kraz is on the wing, which is awesome for his prospects as well. And he's, I think, the second most purchased player, which makes complete sense and looks really good on the wing. We probably already knew this coming into the TLT. It's been kind of reported. But yeah, Lehigh Hopewadi at fullback, Turbo to right centre, Garrick to right wing. So that looks really good potentially for a Garrick, good for Hopewadi, and Jazz Tavanga at hooker. So that's probably also better for anyone who's holding on to Jazz. For the Tigers, Heath Mason's at fullback. Buller's out for 4 to 6 weeks. So that probably cements Latu Fainu in the halves. He's at halfback. And then by the time Buller comes back, you would expect that Mason is the one to drop out and Latu Fainu just keeps his spot in the halves. So we'll talk about him as well. Shout out to Fletcher Sharp as well. Sounds like he's got a pretty serious injury. He's got a, a lacerated kidney as well as a ruptured spleen. Poor bloke. So yeah, he's going to be out indefinitely. Could potentially not play again this season. So he's an obvious sell for anyone who's owning Fletcher Sharp. I think he's someone you'll be moving off. So we'll talk about centre replacements. Greg Marzu's also in the reserve, so he's kind of fighting his way back from that neck injury, and he's, I think, by the sound of it, also a week-to-week proposition. So if you're still holding on to Greg, it's awkward. You don't know whether you should be holding or selling. I feel like if it's another week where he doesn't play, though, ideally you just sell because there's too many other good options in centres. Hudson Young is out rested this week. Bit of a blow for anyone who went early on him last week because he's now missing 17, 18, and 19. So there was actually a question that came to me on socials of, should I sell Hudson? I bought him last week. I actually think given his price, he's actually fine to move on, make use of that cash, and maybe bring him back down the track. Unless you've got decent depth cover. Like the person who asked me had Britton Nickera. I said, look, if you've got Nickera as your cover, I think he's more than fine. So I'd probably hold on to Hudson. But yeah, a bit of a blow for anyone who went early on Hudson last week. Broncos are 1 to 17. That's notable because that means that Karapani has been named. And just on Karapani, he looks like a good option. Toolpro here in the chat is saying he's a bit of a no-brainer. I don't know about no-brainer because it really does depend. Do you need someone to downgrade and potentially make some money? But, all these reports of Selwyn Cobbo being out, the Cowboys are trying to buy him as well. Karapani's re-signed for a couple of years. I think his spot on that left wing looks pretty secure. And he's kind of like Jesse Arthurs from the beginning of the season where he's gone back-to-back doubles in terms of tries. A lot of us jumped on Jesse Arthurs earlier in the year as a cash grab. High upside position on that left wing for the Broncos. Karapani's looking like a very, very good buy. And he's currently the most traded in player as well. For the Warriors, you've got Capel on the edge. Leka Halsima on the bench. Laban starting edge and DWZ out. We'll talk about Laban as well. He could be a potential cheapie at second or forward if you are after one there. Corey Allen and Tui Pelotu back for the Dragons on the wings. So that means that there's no Nathan Lawson and Jaden Sewer is back. So I also traded early to Lawson a couple of weeks ago. Hasn't quite worked out. So we'll talk about him later as a potential sell candidate. For the Eels, you've got Dillbags returning, but you do have Riley Smith out for, I think, 2 weeks with suspension. Penasini out for 3 weeks with suspension. So Sam Riney comes back into right centre for the Eels. Bostock's out with an ACL, so he'll be gone for the rest of the season. So yeah, not a great injury for him. Obviously very long term, and he was obviously flying high for the Dolphins. Rabbitohs have got Cody Walker back, Campbell Graham, and Mamazilis on the bench. That's moved White into centre and Aiken to edge. So any Ewan Aiken owners out there, you'd be pretty happy seeing that. He's just generally a better scorer on the edge than at centre. For the Storm, you've got Xavier Coates back. Jack Howarth is out because of an illness. And then you've got Oregon Kaufusi back for the Sharks. Jaden Campbell out. That was the big one for this week, obviously with that Cap 1 concussion. So he now misses 17 and he will miss round 18. And Tino Fasumala-Awi starts at lock. So that's good to see as well after many people held him through his benching last week. And probably also one of the bigger things from this week as well for the Cowboys, you've got Ruben Cotter and Robson back after getting rested last week. Most importantly, though, you've got Clifford back in the halves, Purdue back at centre. So that kind of experiment of Purdue in the halves is kind of over by the look of it. Clifford, the last time he was recalled for the Cowboys did go on a winning streak, and that was when Drinkwater was at his best, really, Supercoach-wise, because there was a lot of talk about, do you sell Drinkwater coming into this week? I think the news of Clifford back, that really does help out and boost, I think, the credentials of Scotty Drinkwater. So, and that's also something that I looked at and I thought, okay, this changes my thoughts maybe on captaincy as well, given that the Cowboys do play the Titans at Sunday 4 p.m. Drinkwater could become actually a good captaincy candidate. So that was a few kind of, highlights I wanted to call out from TLT. Just looking at the poll in the chat. So in terms of the topics, obviously we'll talk about more stuff than just this, but you've got the best run home squad. Is Karapani worth it? Best center wing replacement for Sharp, and then best 2RF. Comfortably leading the poll is the best run home squad. So we'll get into that next. I will talk about other popular purchases this week, like Harry Grant, for example, in a different section, but I just wanted to put these four as the kind of initial talking points. So let's get started with that. Best run home team. Thank God I prepped for this and I've got a slide on this. So I think this is also a very useful exercise for players, anyone who's watching. If you just have some thought, what I did kind of this afternoon when I wasn't too busy with work stuff, which was good. I just had a play around on the SuperCoach app, just sorting by averages, 3-round averages, 5-round averages, looking at which players don't have that many buys coming up, and just having a think about, okay, ideally, who are the players who, if I stick with now, and obviously it's not just about what they've averaged so far, it's about what they're going to score in the future for the remainder of the season, but just thinking who would be the guys I'd be wanting to have in my run home squad, because that ideally then informs your trade targets. Who do you maybe have to sacrifice not getting, and maybe who you instead are happy to jump on earlier. So just running through this entire squad, I haven't perfected it in terms of your reserve setup and everything like that. But at hooker, I've got Harry Grant and Connor Watson. I do think that these two will be the top two fullbacks, hookers for the run home. Watson's averaging about 68. I think Grant's averaging 61, but Grant was injury impacted as well for parts of the year. He scored well the last couple of weeks, and we know Harry Grant, he's averaged over 70 in pretty much every season in the last 3-4 years. So I still think that Grant and Watson are probably your top two hookers. Blake Brayley is probably someone else to look at. But I think the important thing with hooker as well is we're talking about guys who are averaging 68 and maybe 70. The difference between those two is not a huge amount. So it's kind of a situation where I feel like if you've got a Blake Brayley or Connor Watson already, if you don't jump on Grant, it's not necessarily the end of the world. The guy that you have can maybe get close to matching, where trades are getting valuable. If you use a trade to go from Watson to Grant, you might gain, let's say even if you gain 5 points per game on average for the rest of the year, you might get 50 more points. But that one trade costing, is that one trade worth 50 points when instead you can cover for injuries, or you can make some really, really high upside trades in the centers or the halves. Let's say Cleary goes down in 3 weeks to go, and you've got Jerome Hughes who goes, 80. That trade in itself has netted you probably, what's that, 200 something plus points. So that's just something to be mindful of. With each of these positions, if you can't quite get to that ideal guy, you just have to look at, the player that you do currently have or someone else that you get, difference in average to that ideal guy. And if you think that it's worth sacrificing a few points, then it that helps inform whether you want to trade in that guy or not. For the front row, I think it felt pretty clear with Haas and Terrell May. I think they're going to be top two front rowers easily. Look, I've got Tino in there as the third. I also do have Kolomatangi as the in my second row forward. Depending on how Tino kind of pulls up with the sternum issue, I can easily see Kolomatangi instead being that third front rower. And then it gives you more options in second row where you don't necessarily maybe have to run home with Tino, especially if he keeps battling the sternum issue. You could instead maybe pick up a pod in the second row like a Hudson Young or an Angus or a Kickow. But yeah, for now at the moment, I've got Tino as my kind of third front rower. Tarpany and AFB, I still think rank slightly behind. Probably AFB would be my fourth and Tarpany my fifth. Tarpany's minutes have just been down the last few weeks. When Tarpany was killing it earlier this year, he scored a line break try. He probably would have scored close to 100. Last week, he only scored 81 points with a line break try. His minutes is down a little bit down, his output's a little bit down as a result as well. So yeah, for me, I am looking at not having Tarpany in my run home, and that will actually potentially inform my trades. So second row, I've got Koloamatangi, Eli Katoa, I've got Hudson Young, and then the fourth I've got as like a switch between an Angus Crichton or a Viliami Kikau. I think Angus is definitely someone who looks very enticing. His work rate's been up the last few weeks. You can easily put Aaron Clark. To be honest, I think if Tino keeps battling the sternum issue and is maybe playing and averaging about 65, I think Aaron Clark can comfortably average 70 to 75 for the run home. You can see someone like an Aaron Clark actually taking that spot of a Tino, or taking that spot of even like a Kikau or an Angus Crichton as well. So this is the thing as well, like yes, whilst I put this down, I didn't think about every player probably in full detail, but Aaron Clark would definitely feature in there. We know that the Warriors have got a very good run home. Halfback, I still think Cleary, if he picks up that goal kicking edge, will be the best option. And then it's a toss-up between Hines or Hughes. So I've kind of copped out a bit there, and I just don't think we quite know at this point which of the two would be better. If I had to guess, I think it'd actually be Hines, just because you saw last week, Hughes scored like a try and scored 45 points. Hines, without any tries, because of the goal kicking, he's got better base as well than Jerome Hughes. I think the week prior to last, he scored 57 points without any major attacking stats. I just feel like Hines, maybe the ceiling's not going to be as big as a Jerome Hughes, but I think his floor is definitely higher. So I'd still think that maybe Hines is number 2 behind Cleary, but we don't have to make that decision. I think right now, most of us are probably having a Hines and Hughes combination. For 5'8", I do think Munster probably would be my number 1, Campbell 2, Metcalf would probably be number 3. So Tulpa is asking, no Luke Metcalf at 5'8". Yeah, look, Metcalf, I think, he's battling this quad cork, which should be a very, very minor issue. I think still, I don't know, again, this is something, I don't know if it's a bias towards Campbell, but I still feel like someone like a Jaden Campbell is potentially still a better option than Metcalf. I do feel like Munster is number 1. Just nothing really informing that apart from I think he's playing for the best team. But Metcalf would probably be number 2 or 3, but for me, Munster is probably number 1 still. In terms of centres, this felt not too difficult. So I think Karaz, Lomax, and Herbie are probably in the top 3, and then Dylan Lucas as well. Now, there is a question in the chat, which is Luke from Mitchell Finch, is Lucas better value in the second row forward on the run home to fit in an extra centre wing gun? Absolutely, and this is the thing as well, because if we say look at someone like a Tino, I think he's 75% owned in the higher ranked coaches. If you're happy to jump off of Tino, you can put someone like a Dylan Lucas in his place. And Dylan Lucas has got like a 5-round average of 84. I think his season average is 79. Absolutely, Dylan Lucas could just be as a set and forget in your second row. If you actually filter in the SuperCoach app by second rowers, I'm pretty sure that Lucas is like top 2 or top 3. So even though he's available at centre, he actually still completely stacks up at the second row forward position. Yeah, he's the second highest averaging second row forward, only behind Hudson Young. So absolutely, you can put Lucas in as your second row forward. You know, if you look at this particular team setup here, you could say Haas, May, Koloamatangi as your front rowers, and then you could put like an Eli Katoa, Hudson Young, and then maybe like a Dylan Lucas. Again, I think the benefit of having Lucas at second row is and if you didn't have Tino, and if you ran Koloamatangi as a front rower, it probably gives you a slot in your third second rower to go for a bit of a point of difference. Because I think Eli Katoa, Dylan Lucas are super highly owned. But then when you look at your Hudson Youngs, Angus Crichtons, Kickows, Britton Nickera, Preston, if you're looking at that kind of player for your third second rower, they're all guys who don't have that super high ownership compared to those, Koloamatangis and Eli Katoas. So it actually allows you to have a bit of a pod choice as your third second rower. Of course, if you put Luke, of course the drawback is that if you have, I should probably clarify myself. That's if you had Lucas. If you had Koloamatangi at front row. If you had Koloamatangi at your second row, I'd probably say your top 3 is Koloamatangi, Katoa, and Lucas. So that probably reduces your ability to get that kind of. The reason I harp on the third second rower is because that's a position that you'd play every single week. Because ideally, if you're picking a gun pod second row forward, you want to play them every week. The benefit of the centers is that you need to fill out 4 every week. So having Lucas there, you can kind of have set and forget Karaz, Lomax, Herbie, and Lucas. And then that gives you probably more flexibility to have at least that third pod in the second row. And if you had Koloamatangi in your front row, then you actually maybe get 2 bites at the cherry of pods in the second row. But then the same argument applies if you put Lucas at second row, you can go to pod in the center wing. So it kind of is neither here nor there. Lucas is just an elite option wherever you pick him. Currently, I have Lucas in my second row forward, just because my centre wing depth is a little bit better, I don't necessarily need to have Lucas at second row. I am looking potentially at maybe flipping Lucas down to centre wing in the coming weeks though, just to try to jump on some of these second rowers like an Angus. I'm very keen on Angus, very keen on Kickow, and so I feel like putting Lucas down into centre wing frees up those slots in second row for me to get one of those guys, because I do think those guys are potential pods. Yeah, and the reason I talk about Koloamatangi as front row, obviously he doesn't have it yet, but come round 18, he should get front row forwards dual status added. So that should be next week. Again, the benefit of having Lucas at second row forward, it means you've got a slot available also for like an Aaron Clark, who I think is an elite option. He played bigger minutes last week as well. So I think Karaz, Lomax, Herbie, Lucas, pretty set at centre. You've got a fifth option maybe of like a Ruben Garrick. I think I don't expect Garrick to stay on the wing long term. I think this move of Turbo to centre is only for really a couple of 2 to 3 weeks if I had to guess. So Garrick at right centre is not going to be as good maybe as right wing. But I still think Garrick goal kicking, the last month for Manly actually looks pretty good as well. I still think Garrick, just because of his track record, should definitely be worthy of maybe being your fifth. I've got Mark Nawangani-Tawasi. Haven't even included Val Holmes there. I think Val is probably a bit of a forgotten man, just that he's been away through Origin. So again, this is this is very, very fluid. So, what I put on the page now isn't necessarily set and forget. Because all of a sudden, if Val becomes an option, and if he outperforms some of those other second rowers, then I'd just say, well, put Lucas at second row and put Val in his place there as well. It's just based on currently, if we're trading in now, or if I'm looking at the next few weeks, this is kind of the team setup I think I'd be going for. And then for fullback, I think Tedesco and Pappy still locked in for me. Tedesco, I think, is probably number one. I think Pappy, he's dropped off a little bit in the last 3 to 4 rounds, but he is still goal kicking for that gun Melbourne team. And then I think the third most popular is Drinkwater. I feel like Latrell, though, is going to usurp him. And I think Latrell is going to become that third guy. You've got a Reece Walsh, you've got Dylan Edwards. But we know that, Latrell on his day, goal kicking, he's involved in everything for the Rabbitohs. He scored 97 points against the Storm last week. I think Latrell, in my opinion, is going to be the third fullback we'll all want. So that's my early take right now. Obviously, we're not trading in Latrell because he misses 18 and misses 19. But come round 20, I can see a lot of people maybe thinking of going Drinkwater to Latrell, especially if Drinkwater doesn't really light it up in the next few rounds as well. So, yeah, definitely thinking that Latrell will get over Drinky as the third best fullback. So, yeah, hopefully that helps you guys in terms of looking at, some of the run home options. This helped me a lot because it helped with my trade plans for this week in terms of future rounds as well and who I'm kind of targeting. And yeah, Lachlan makes a really good point in the chat here as well about Angus in particular. And another reason I'm very keen on Angus is that with Sam Walker coming back, there potentially could be more ball as well going down Angus's side. I think just on Angus, he seems like he's back to, last year he was so elite at the kind of the palm off the fend. He was just getting free tackle busts and he was doing a lot in Origin last year. I feel like he started to do that in the last few weeks as well. So yeah, signs are looking good for Angus. And I think also the Roosters look like they're in a good position as well in terms of how the team is functioning. So I can see someone like an Angus also kicking on very well for the rest of the year. I think his season average is like 65. He's someone who I would wager on averaging closer to 75 to 80 for the run home. So yes, I know Jay saying Angus's high score of the year is 78, but again, it's one of these things where you have to look at, sure, you look at what they've done so far this year, but you have to also predict what's going to change. And, one of the big changes is Sam Walker coming back into that Roosters team. That should improve the fortunes of Angus if Sam Walker plays 5'8" and Hugo Savala's halfback. Sam Walker being on the left, we know that he'll be the more ball-dominant player as well. So yeah, it's always about predicting. No Nathan Lawson? Nah, Nathan Lawson ain't going to be in this run-home centre. I can tell you that much, that's for sure. Turbo at centre. Yeah, I said it last week very passionately. I think even Turbo, if he gets centre status, which I don't think Turbo is going to get centre status because he's only played, I think, even if he plays the next 2 games at centre, you need 3 games to get the dual status update. So I don't think Turbo's even going to get centre status. Mate, even if he did, I'd still pick Karaz, Lomax, Herbie, Lucas, Garrick, Mark Nawangani-Tawasi and Val Holmes above Turbo. That's already 7 centres. So I don't even think there's space for Turbo as well. But famous last words because, yeah, Turbo could come out and kill it as well. So that's some of my thoughts on the run home, guys. Hopefully that helped. we'll get on to the next section, which was looking at Karapani. So, and I've broadened this to other cheapies as well. So the question I asked was, is Karapani worth it? Literally, Rosa in the chat is saying, sorry, I'm late. Is Karapani worth it? Again, cop-out answer is team dependent. Do you need to downgrade to him to free up the coin? Me personally, I don't think he's if it was earlier in the season, absolutely must have because of the cash generation. When trades are running low, it does become a little bit more difficult. But I do think Karapani is way more of a buy than not. Put it that way. I think the signs look good for him in terms of job security with the whole Cobbo situation, him being re-signed himself. We saw earlier in the season that Jesse Arthur's really profited when he was playing on the left wing. I'm just going to quickly pull up Arthur's numbers from earlier in the season. But, if I look at the first 3 rounds of the year, Arthur scored 1 try, then a hat-trick, then another try, didn't score another try, then he had a double, try. So yeah, we know that Arthur's on that left wing was really profiting. He was averaging, he scored 94, 96 in the first 2 games, effectively what Karapani did. Then he went into more kind of the scores in the 60s. So I think Karapani, obviously you don't expect a 92.5 average. He doesn't have really the best work rate as well. His base power average in his only 2 games is 33.5. But I think it's just the upside of it's a good Broncos team. Reece Walsh being back as well, and Ezra Mam probably feels like that left side is going to be the more preferred side for the Broncos. Matchups don't look great with the Warriors, but he does cover round 18 against the Bulldogs. Round 19, which is that tricky mini bye round, he's got the Titans, so it could be actually a very handy number in that week. Round 20, he's got the bye, but that should be okay because by then you've got probably good depth to cover him. And then the run home for the Broncos is actually pretty good as well. Parramatta, Rabbitohs, Melbourne's obviously a bit tougher. Then you've got the Finns, Knights, Cowboys, and then Melbourne again. So a couple of top matchups, but again, he's going to be so cheap. You don't necessarily have to trade him in and trade him out to realize his cash growth. You can just trade him in and just set and forget him and just play him on matchups or just as some additional depth cover. So yeah, I'm personally looking at Karapani. That's because I've got someone like a Nathan Lawson. Lawson is not named this week. He's also not going to be a number for me in round 18. And I think Karapani, if the difference with him versus, say, a Lawson, I think is just the team he's playing for and the position he's in. Left wing at the Broncos is such a good spot. And as I said, we saw it earlier with Arthur's as well. So I think Karapani is definitely worth it. And it's a good point here from Wooden Spoon SC, which is saying it's time to prioritize points over money. I definitely agree with that. But this is the thing as well. I think Karapani can deliver points. He's not purely a cash player. He can be someone who will make money, but I think he actually can generally score points as well. And on that Warriors matchup, so I know it's a tough matchup in general, but if I quickly look to the matchups chart, if you see the Warriors, they've conceded 61% of their tries on their right edge. And who did the Warriors play last week? They played Penrith. Yeah, Tom Jenkins scored a try against them last week. We've seen earlier in the year, I think it may have been Marzu who, again, this is a random pickup, but I don't think Marzu scored in that game against the Warriors, but he was very, very close. He went into touch. I don't think the Warriors have, on that particular edge, been that great defensively. So I think even this week, Karapani is actually not even a bad play as well, if you wanted to play him this week. So I think the individual matchup this week is actually good as well. So yeah, I'm definitely very, very keen on Karapani. Edward here is asking, is it worth selling Lawson to Karapani? Again, for me, it works on my team because it gets me that extra number in 18. You do need to spend up another, 72k, which isn't fantastic. Lawson he's definitely been a dud purchase, but I think it's worth it. You're getting some better depth in your squad. And yeah, again, I'm looking at round 19, which we know is going to be a tricky week, and he's got the Titans that week. So could be just a very, very good matchup as well. Warriors right wing is the mighty Ed Cossey. Yeah, I don't know how good defensively Ed Cossey is at the moment as well. So yeah, for me, Karapani looks a very, very good buy. Can I congratulate Louis on his engagement, please? Absolutely. Congrats, Louis, on your engagement. Welcome to soon-to-be married life. And yeah, thanks, Nicholas, for that kind donation as well. So yeah, Lawson to Karapani, I think is worth it. I'm just trying to think of some other centers that people might be looking at selling. Billy Smith might be someone that people are looking at selling. I kind of feel like Billy Smith and Karapani are almost similar, where they don't have the best of base stats. Like Smith scored a double last week and only scored about 77 points. He does play 18 though and 19 Billy Smith, so that makes it a little bit more tricky. You do free up a bit over 100k going Billy Smith to Karapani. So like, I don't hate a Billy Smith to Karapani trade. I don't think you need to force that one. I feel like the best players, Fletcher Sharp to Karapani, if you wanted to do that to free up a bunch of money, makes sense to me. If you've got other dud players, if you've got still like a Hiroti, those kind of players I think are okay to sell to Karapani. But it's hard to... Yeah, so James asking here, selling Hiroti. Yeah, selling Hiroti to Karapani makes sense. Sell Marzu. I think Marzu is also someone I would be okay selling. I'll quickly pull it up here as well. But even if Marzu comes back, the Knights don't have the best of runs. So even if Marzu plays this week, it's the Raiders. Then he has a bye in 18. Then he's got Melbourne. I know we spoke about the Warriors as a tough matchup, but it's a good edge for him. Then it's Raiders again in 21. Then another bye in 22. Then it's Penrith in 23. So I think long term, the Knights draw isn't that scary. So I think Marzu is someone that you could also look to just go off and not have to worry about trading back in. So I think if you're in a position where you've got a Marzu, I think Marzu to Karapani also makes sense to me as well. Thank you, Martin Lau, for the very, very kind $20 donation. Is Karapani worth it? Just kidding. Shout out to Nicholas, who wants a shout out to Louis. Absolutely. I feel like the Louis shout outs happen almost every week, but no, appreciate that so much, Martin. That's very, very generous. Thank you so much. So this is a good one as well. Pablo Escobar, not the original one, just the username here. Purdue a hold this week, 114 break even. This is a tough one because Purdue has the Titans this week, but he's got the high break even, and we know that Purdue, when he was playing at center, was killing it earlier this year. Again, it comes down to your team situation. I don't think you need to necessarily sell Purdue for Karapani for points purposes, because I think Purdue is good playing at center. But knowing that you can free up that money and avoid the cash drop on Purdue to Karapani does seem pretty attractive as well. Again, I just really like the position that Karapani is in on that left wing. All right, I think that's probably it on the Karapani chat. On Jed Stewart, so someone in the chat was asking Jed Stewart next week. Not for me. I know the Raiders cover 18, but he does miss out on round 19. Just with him, I think just the work rate wasn't really there. He had a base power. He only scored 14 points in base power on the weekend. He did score a try as well to get up to 45 points average. So his break even's 3. For me, it's not the same as a Karapani where, it's a bit different where he's pure bottom dollar. But he feels like he could be like another Lawson 2.0, which is a bit of an AE nightmare. I don't think he's a Lawson in terms of job security. I think he's got that jersey until Tamali's back. But in terms of the work rate, he didn't have the best of work rates. So I think he could be a bit more of an auto-emergency nightmare. And also with the left wing at the Raiders, like Tamali at times was scoring well and scoring tries, but it's not the same as like a Karapani who's just going to get fed ball pretty much every single game. So I think there'll be games where Jed Stewart does just kind of score 15 to 20 points and not much. So I'm not really looking at or factoring in Jed Stewart into my trade plans over the next few weeks. And yeah, definitely, even though it's a 100k difference, I 100% prefer Karapani to Jed Stewart. In terms of some other couple of cheapies as well, so Latu Fainu, who is, I think, I'm having a look at it here. He's currently he's not even in the top 10 most trade-ins. I think he was like number 11. Latu Fainu, I think, is a good trade-in as well. He's got that negative break-even, covers round 18 and covers round 19. So it covers a couple of tricky weeks. If you're sitting, again, it's hard to say who you'd sell for Fainu. I've got King Tongia. I'm probably not going to trade King Tongia to Fainu. It feels a little bit sideways. It'd be a different story if King Tongia is dropped. Then potentially I might move to a Latu Fainu, because I think Fainu's going to have that jersey now. He's got 4 weeks playing in the halves, and then once Buller's back, that should be enough to have his fitness proved, and then I suspect that Heath Mason will drop to the bench. Even if Fainu's on the bench, he was playing this kind of hybrid 5'8 lock role. His work rate wasn't that bad as well. His base power average is 28 in his few games, but I think he had base power of 45 in one of those games where he played at lock. So I think Fainu is a solid purchase this week if you've got the need for that 5'8. I know people may be looking at selling at Jaden Campbell because you might want to avoid Campbell and that high break even. Given that Campbell misses this week and next week, I can see some merit in maybe going Campbell to Fainu. You free up a bunch of cash, get in some big upgrades, and then you can let Campbell kind of reduce in price while he's got that really high break even and he's got that 8 in his rolling average for a few weeks. And then maybe you trade back to Campbell in maybe round 20, round 21. I can see that maybe potentially being a play. You just need to factor in, I guess, your trades and how many trades that you do have. In terms of the last cheapie I've got on the list here, I've got Jacob Laban from the Warriors. He's been named to start. 3-round average of 43, scored well last week, and he's got a negative 17 break even. Again, it just depends. Do you have the need for a downgrade in the second row? Like, he scored 74 last week. The last time he played before that was 44. So there's not a big sample size in terms of games with good scoring. And I'm just concerned that even though Capel's been named on the edge, at any point, does Jacob Laban go back to the bench and maybe Halasima start? I'm just not 100% sure how I can predict that Warriors forward pack between him and, say, Halasima. So he's not really high on my own radar at the moment. I just think Karapani, for the same price, if you've got the duels to get via centre, for me is a much better downgrade. I know Ange here is asking Hubner to Jacob Laban. Yeah, potentially. But I think if you're unsure, in my opinion, if you're looking at selling a Hubner to free up money in second row, I'd almost be okay just going with enough. Maybe you can get someone who's second row forward, centre wing. That's probably the ideal enough dual position I'd get. Then you'd free up, like, I think, 200k maybe, doing Hubner to enough. Obviously, and the thing is as well, between Laban and enough, they don't cover you for round 18 anyway. Of course, it might hurt your depth in round 19. You just need to be comfortable that you've got adequate depth for round 19. But so for Katie, I've also got on the table here, but he does it on a bye this week. So the reason I only put him was depending on what happens with Victor Radley, because I think if Katie gets a starting gig, as he did last week, or plays big minutes, he's actually proven to be pretty good Supercoach scoring wise. All right, let's get onto some centers chat, because I know I can see a few questions coming in. Also, I'm just going to end the poll as well. Best center wing for Sharp. I think we've discussed Karapani in depth. So let's talk about some center wings. So of course, we've got Fletcher Sharp as probably the big sell candidate this week. Definitely think he's a sell, just given the nature of his injuries. He's currently got 18,500 trade outs, as well as a Bostock who's at 619k. He's also a sell. People are selling a Jackson Purdue. There's plenty of people selling their centers. So I think what I wanted to do was just have a look at the best options I think you can possibly get for the run home. So I think the two most popular ones that people are looking at this week, or the three most popular, I should say, it's probably a Karaz. He's currently the second most traded in. Lomax, who's the fourth, and then Herbie, who's the fifth. And then you've got Lehigh Hopewadi, who's the eighth most traded in player, as it currently stands. So for me, on the trade-in option for this week, let's say if you had Fletcher Sharp and maybe you've got 50k in the bank, I think Karaz for me is the one. So someone in the chat is asking, I'm just going to quickly try to find it. Rules are saying, can we hold off on Karaz until next week? You definitely can hold off on Karaz, because his break-even 76. So even if he comes out and scores like 80, 90 points, he's not going to go up massively in price. And, if you're at all concerned about him potentially playing game 3 for New South Wales, let's say hypothetically there's an injury to Lomax or Brian To'o, Karaz is going to be going into that New South Wales team. But on the premise that he doesn't, he'll play around 18, plays around 19. In fact, he has no more buys for the rest of the year. And I think that's what edges Karaz over Lomax for me. Lomax is guaranteed to miss round 18 due to Origin, whereas Karaz isn't guaranteed. Karaz has slightly better work rate as well than Lomax. Lomax has got a base power season average of 53. Karaz is 60. I think we've just seen this season as well that Karaz is probably top 3 center wing. I think the top 2 centers this season have been Herbie and Karaz. Also, I realized, guys, sorry, I've got some numbers wrong here. Apologies. I think I've got the numbers wrong for Lehigh Hopewadi. So I think those numbers I've got on the screen there are incorrect. Apologies. Let's see if I can change that on the fly. I'll give you guys some insight into how I do this. Let's have a look here. Because Lehigh Hopewadi is definitely not averaging 84 points. What is he? He's 663k. He's got his average of 64, 3-round average of 70, 5-round average of 70. Don't know what his base power is. His break even is about 120. Ownership, I'm not sure. I think it's about 12% actually. I think that's accurate. So anyway, I don't have his base power for the season, unfortunately. But yes, for me, Karaz is, I think, number 1. Difficult if you don't have Herbie. So let me know in the chat if you're someone who doesn't own Herbie. He's 878k. and he's got a break even of 47, and he's got the Rabbitohs this week. Like, that's not a bad matchup. If you're trading in someone this week, thinking of your round 18 numbers, Kiraz is the one. I think Herbie would be number 2. Just because, actually, I don't know. Would I put Lomax? I'd actually take Lomax above Herbie. He's 200k cheaper, I'll put it that way. So, yeah, for me, Lomax would be number 2 behind Kiraz. I do think Lomax still is a top 3 centre wing. Someone in the chat earlier mentioned that the run home for the Dragons doesn't look very good. Not for the Dragons, sorry, slip of the tongue, for the Eels. So, yeah, his run home looks like he's got Dragons this week, a bye next week. Then he's got Penrith, Raiders, Broncos, Melbourne, Cowboys, and Rabbitohs. So it's not a great it's not a great set of games. But I guess the benefit with Lomax, he is matchup proof. He scored 81 on the weekend without any. I think he got 1 try assist, but he's got that really high floor of 53 base power. He's got the goal kicking. Lomax for me just feels like someone who, without any attacking stats, he's a safe 60 to 65. And once Moses comes back into that team, I think Lomax will kick up a gear as well. And look, yes, those games on paper look not that great, but Penrith haven't been the defensive juggernaut this year. Canberra Way is a bit tough. Broncos can be leaky. Melbourne can definitely concede points to their edges. We saw Alex Johnston score 4 tries against them last week. Then he's got the Cowboys. Then he's got the Rabbitohs. Again, it feels like, yes, the matchups on paper look not that great, but Lomax is a origin player. He's an absolute gun player. I think he's someone who is definitely matchup proof. So, yeah, for me, Lomax, I think, is still worth a trade in this week if you maybe already own Kiraz, if you're selling a Fletcher Sharp, because I suspect that Lomax is also someone who will most likely back up in round 19 as well. So I feel like he's also going to be fine for you in terms of your depth. But yeah, top 3 for me would be Kiraz, Herbie, and Lomax. If you didn't own Herbie this week, because he doesn't play round 18, I think I'd almost argue fading him. Just the price is now getting ridiculous, and he's got a buy in 18. He also does have a buy in round 21, so I don't know if this is silly to just keep saying avoid him, but I mean, I'm not saying to avoid him. I bought Herbie a couple of weeks ago, and I said he was still a buy last week. It's just that if you're tossing up him or a Lomax this week, I just think that Lomax plays that extra game in the run home, and I think he's less attacking stat reliant than Herbie, although I say that, and he scored 106 without any major attacking stats last week. So yeah, for me, Lomax probably doesn't have the best run home, but I think he's matchup proof. Did you take out Hopwhitey's HI game from his price? No, that was a typo. I fixed it now, guys, so I fixed it. He is 663k. Apologies. There's always something I miss. This is the problem with, ideally I like doing the streams at 6:30. It just generally means that there's always one thing that I miss because there's obviously lots of slides to update. Just seeing if there's any other questions related to centers, because I do think the Sharp to Kiraz move makes complete sense. I think Sharp to Lomax, Sharp to Herbie, they all make sense to me. And we spoke a little bit before about the rankings of your top centers for the run home. On Lehigh Hopewadi, so someone I think earlier was asking, is Lehigh still, Charlie's basically asking, is Lehigh still good? Lehigh is still definitely a good trade in. The break even is high, so you will lose some money. The issue I do have with Hopewadi is that while the next 2 weeks are good with the West Tigers and the Rabbitohs at home, where he could definitely go 80-80, he's got the buy in round 19. Then he does have Melbourne, Bulldogs, Roosters, and Canberra. And I suspect that by round 20, round 21, he'd be back on the wing. And for me, he feels like someone who you trade in at centre, and the next 2 games at fullback would be good. But just if he's back on the wing, come round 20, run home, I don't think he's going to be in your top 5, top 6 centres. I can think of Kiraz, Herbie, Lomax, Lucas, Val potentially all being better than him, and maybe even a Garrick. So that's 5 or 6 centers I'm already ranking above him. So that's probably one thing, is if you trade him in and you aren't able to get him out, he's not maybe going to be the best in terms of a pure own. In saying that though, the last month isn't terrible. Tigers, Dolphins, Dragons, and the Warriors. So he's someone that you could maybe still just keep into your team. But missing round 19 also is not great, because I think that round 19 will be the most difficult mini buy round to cover. So I think if you already don't have a Hopewadi, if you already own like a Garrick, I think, and if you've got the option instead to get like a Kiraz or a Lomax, again, it depends. Do you need the round 18 cover? If you do, then maybe get Hopewadi. And if you feel like you're okay for 19, then yeah, sure, get Hopewadi. If you feel like you're okay for 18, but you are struggling for 19, then maybe instead lean the way of a Lomax, lean the way of a Val Holmes. Val, I still don't quite know what I'm thinking with Val in terms of my rankings. We know in seasons gone past he is a top 3, top 4 center. Just this year, I just don't know where to place him. So I think with Val, I'm letting him go this week. He misses round 18. He comes back then to the Roosters and the Bulldogs. Maybe for me, he becomes a round 21 person I look at, Val. So not one I'll be looking at maybe in the next couple of weeks, but maybe for future, round 21 might be the time I look at Val. If you're keen on Val, he's very low owned, 8% in the higher ranks. Good matchup at home to Parramatta. I don't hate him as a bit of a pod trade-in as well this week. He's probably one of the better point of difference players you can get at centre, who we know is a seasoned gun. Because if you look at these ownership stats, Hopewadi misses round 19. Mark Nwangni-Tawasi's on the bye this week. Lomax is good at 27%, and then you've got Val at 8%. So those are my kind of higher upside, or what I'd call the traditional gun centres with low ownership. I've written below me some other centres who are point of difference players who've got good 5-round averages. Katoni Staggs at 620k, but I think if you're getting a Karapani, there's no need to double up with Staggs, and we know that Staggs can disappoint, as I know all too well firsthand. So I'm not too keen on Staggs. Alex Johnston could definitely be a potential flyer. He's got a low break even this week, 580k, 5-round average of 79. For me, though, I think the fact that he misses round 19 again is just why I'm not looking at him. Bradman Best has been very good, but the Knights do have this tough run of games, so I'm kind of avoiding getting in on someone like a Bradman Best. Blaze Talangi is a little bit below in terms of 5-round averages of 66, but if Penrith do go on a bit of a run, he is someone that you can also consider at centre. And then Beau Fermor, he's super solid, scored 59 last week, all in base. He's been a little bit down in terms of average though, and again, I'm just thinking of who are guys in the centres who've got like guaranteed 65 to 70 every week, plus upside. Fermor probably, he's shown it at times, but I'd lean more to those other guys in Karaz, Herbie, Lucas, Lomax, Val, Garrick. Those are probably the guys I'd be preferring to have, over a Beau Fermor. If I have Bostock and I own Kiraz and Herbie, should I go to Lomax or get a second rower via Lucas? I could get Haas in via Lucas and a front rower. If I was in that position, I think I'd actually like to get a second rower. Look, me personally, I'm very keen on Kikau now. I know I've said that I really don't like Kikau in the past, but Kikau is different this year. So for me, I definitely am very keen on Kikau. So if you were selling a Bostock, I think he's like $2,000 in difference. You can go Bostock to Kikau and you get someone for round 18 and round 19 and for the rest of the season. And then with Payne Haas, we spoke about it a little bit earlier. Because Haas is going to miss 18, maybe he doesn't back up in round 19, remains to be seen. And then he misses round 20 with a bye. I think anyone who's sold Payne Haas, maybe you just wait till round 21 to get him back. And yeah, one other centre who I have not got on anywhere in the screen, who I should definitely give a mention to, is Brian To'o. So I know a lot of people are very keen on Brian To'o as well. His ownership is probably very, very low. He's only played 6 games this season. So he's had a bit of an injury-affected year as well, obviously with that hamstring. Yeah, for me, To'o's, pretty solid. I think he kind of is what he is. So the 2 seasons prior, he averaged 70 and 71. He feels like someone who's going to be between a 68 to a 70 averaging player. The good thing with him is that the Penrith Panthers do have a good draw for the run home. From round 19, it reads Parramatta, Rabbitohs, Tigers, Titans, Knights, Storm, Raiders, Bulldogs, Dragons. So there's a lot of home games in there as well. So I think To'o is actually probably a nice point of difference for the run home. And yeah, this is also the beauty of waiting a little bit. If there's no one you're really set on, there's a multitude of other good options that you can go to down the track. So Brian To'o definitely features in that. Yeah, as you say, Lachlan, they've got that really good draw around 19 to 23. Yeah, the only thing with... Well, not the only thing, but I just feel like To'o... I'm trying to find the way to articulate it, but I can't really... I've just felt the last couple of seasons he's been a bit... It's hard to say disappointing, probably because he's set the bar so high in terms of his own performances. But when it comes... And this is not real life, I'm saying he's disappointing. I think this is more Supercoach, because I think what I feel like happens in the last couple of seasons is that he kind of goes along and scores between 40 to 60 more often than not. And then he has this like 1 or 2 games where he goes 130, scores like a hat trick, scores a double. And that's what brings his average to 70. Like, we know he's got really good base, but then there are sometimes just games where all he does is base power and nothing else. No line breaks, no tries at all. And then he'll have other games, like I'm looking at 2024. To'o in his first 5 rounds, well, if you look at the first 8 rounds, 45, 49, 124, 42, 48, 49, 98. So again, hovering in the 40s and then those big scores. And then he had a stretch middle of the season where he went 171, 104, 86. But again, that was followed up with a 44, 68, 109, 32, 47, 45, and then 84. So I don't know if, I mean, it doesn't really matter. It all averages out in the end, but he feels like someone who's had these, games where he gets nothing and then games where he gets everything. So long as you're happy to, ride that out, then I think it's fine. And of course, with that good draw round 19 to 23, you could catch 2 or 3 big scores as well. So Toto is someone who I'm thinking about round 19 maybe, but I don't know. I still feel like Karaz, Herbie, Lucas, Lomax, they all rank above him for me still, as it currently stands. Holmes to Karapani to free up cash. I think if you own Holmes, I don't think you sell, because I think at that ownership, I'd be very happy as a Val owner. Nice little point of difference, and it's a very good matchup as well to Parramatta this week. Definitely wouldn't be selling Holmes if you own him. And Ange makes a good point as well. Tui Pilotu will help Val's scores. That's probably going to be the case, because I think when Tui Pilotu was killing it earlier in the year, Val was sometimes just getting free try assists. If Gutherson wasn't getting it, it was generally going to Val. Val has just been very consistent this year, like a low score of 40, high score of 97, but a lot of scores in the 70s. So again, Val just feels like someone who's never going to really, let you down in most weeks. All right, that's some of my chat on the center wings. Let's quickly look at second row forwards, because I can see a question here from Tool Pro, which is Tino to Kikau with Tino's high break even. So on Tino, firstly, because I know that he was in the top 10 most trade outs before. He's not there at the moment. That's probably because he's been named to start. A bit of a pickle with Tino. I think selling Tino is okay, because he's got this high break even and he is battling this sternum issue, and he's still at a decent price at 624k. And if you want the round 18 cover, then I completely understand maybe moving on a Tino to a Kikau. On round 18, playing second row forwards, there's really not that many good options. Kolomatangi is one, but he's so highly owned. If you look at the table, he's currently 94% owned. So he's either going to play round 18, but everyone has him, or he gets picked for New South Wales. You've got Eli Katoa, who's 93% owned. So apart from those two, there's not really many others who play round 18 in the second row. The best options are probably maybe Toby Couchman, but again, he feels like maybe a step below these guys I've got on the main table here. And then you've got Kikau and Preston. Really, those are the only guys I think who cover at 18. And I do prefer Kikau to Preston. He's a little bit cheaper, and I think we saw with Preston, all of his big scores came when he was playing on the left edge for the Bulldogs. Kikau's work rate is up this year, base power average of 54, no more bias for the rest of the year. He will give you those games of 40 to 50, but he's got these high upside games in him as well. And what I've liked in the last couple of weeks is offloading a lot more as well. He scored 91 in base power in his last game as well. And the thing with Kikau, I feel like you can also just play him on matchups. You don't necessarily have to play him every week. You can just pick and choose when you want to play him, depending on his matchup for that particular round. So Tino to Kikau, I think if you don't have any other way of getting to him and you want to boost up your round 18 numbers, I'm actually okay with selling Tino. I was thinking of selling Tino this week. I'm actually a little bit annoyed at myself. Last week, I didn't go Tino to Kikau. I was thinking about doing that trade just to get ahead. This is when Tino was in this like 699k. I think the fact that Karapani is confirmed to be someone I probably will want to maybe get this week, and I want to get Karaz. I don't think I'll be able to get Tino out for Kikau, but I think I've looked at my team and I think I've got another way to get in Kikau, so that's probably maybe a little bit more okay to hold on to a Tino. Someone in the chat is asking, where is it? Kiraz and Lomax or Kikau and Karapani? 100% Kiraz and Lomax for me. That would definitely be the combo I'd be going for. Let's have a look at some other questions. Yeah, there's not a whole heap around second row forwards this week. I just think, people are still selling Olukwatu. I think if you're selling Olukwatu this week, yeah, Kikau's probably the guy just to get that round 18 cover. For your run home, we spoke about that a lot already. But, Kolomatangi, Lucas, Katoa, Angus, they're probably Aaron Clark. They're probably the suspects. On Britton Nikora very quickly as well. I know he doesn't cover 18 and he does have another buy in round 25, but he does feel like he's getting back a little bit to what we saw from last year. So he's got a -2 break even, 606k. I myself am not probably looking at trading in Nikora. I do think that there are still better options than him, but I think the signs are there that he is on the uptick. So if you look at his last three scores base power wise, 65, 65 and 55. So he's gone back-to-back weeks of scoring 65 in base power, which I'm pretty sure is up there in terms of his highest for the season. The fact that he misses 18 is a bit of a blow. I think if you covered 18, I'd almost be tempted to pick him over Kikau. But yeah, Britton Nikora, I think for anyone who's held on to him, I think he's still someone I'd be happy to hold on to. And if you are looking for point of differences, maybe if you're more of a head-to-head player and you don't care about your round 18 cover, or you're not loving Kikau and you don't need 18 cover, I think Nikora is actually a fairly good shout. I would say though, if you're not interested in round 18 cover, just get Aaron Clark instead, because Aaron Clark is a monster and he's only owned by 36% of the higher ranked coaches as well. Way better underlying base power, like his last 3 games base power, 79, 66 and 72. The man will get you 70 points every single week, which is, I can't believe I'm saying this about Aaron Clark, but here we are. This is what 2025 has brought us for SuperCoach. But yeah, that's kind of some of my thoughts on the second rowers. On Hudson Young, we spoke about him a little bit earlier. If you've got depth, I think you just keep Hudson Young if you've already traded him in last week. If you don't, I don't mind selling Hudson on just because he'll miss 17, 18 and 19. He's 750k, so you can really use that money. And then you can always look to trade him back in later on. He will have a high break even by the time he comes back in round 20 as well, because he's scored low last week. So he's also someone that you can sell, and then maybe if you've got the trades, bring him back for a bit of a discount. Even then still, if you sell him and you can't get back to him, there's a multitude of other good second rowers. You can get back to a Aaron Clark or an Angus Crichton or even an Isaiah Yeo, Nikora, Kikau. A lot of good options that you can still look at in second row. I do feel like second row, to me, it feels like the position that you can maybe take the point of difference players. And I think you can just kind of go with who your gut's thinking, because apart from Kolomatangi and Eli Gatoa and Dylan Lucas, everyone else is kind of sub 30, 20% ownership in the top ranks. So I think you can just kind of take a flyer. Angus Crichton is currently 1%. So barely anyone owns him. Of course, he misses this week 18. But if he gets named to start in round 19, he's at a really good price at 584k. You can jump early on him. And yeah, very keen to see how Angus performs in the run home. But I think he could be a nice little point of difference. And yeah, to me, second row forward feels like the position to get your point of difference players. Just going to quickly circle back to the hookers, just because Grant is the third most traded in player. We spoke about them a little bit earlier in the kind of ideal run home squad chat, about, if you don't have Harry Grant, but instead you have like a Connor Watson or a Blake Brayley, those three feel like the best three hookers for me at the moment. Brayley in particular, with a 5-run average of 70, has been doing really well. And he's also been running the ball a lot more as well and looks a lot better as a result. So, I'm in this position where I have Connor Watson. I've held Connor Watson this whole time. As it currently stands, I can't see myself really trading to Grant, just because I think Connor Watson is completely fine. If he averages 67 for the run home and Grant averages 72, there's only 5 points of difference. If we look at the next 10 weeks, that's only 50 points I'm losing out on. Of course, it could be much different. Grant could go and average 80 for the run home and Watson 60, and then it's 20 points difference over 10 weeks, and that would hurt a lot more. But as it currently stands, I think if you're just on Sanders Smith as well, because Sanders Smith did pick up an injury last week, he was actually cleared of injury. So Smith isn't exactly an urgent sell. If you've got like a Riley Smith at 420, if you are someone who has a Riley Smith, Sanders Smith combination, I think who would I sell of the two? I'd probably sell Riley Smith just because, I'd sell both of them eventually. Sanders Smith should play around 18, but then once Walker's back, will drop out. Riley Smith, I think, is out for 2 weeks anyway, and he's kind of done his job. He's made $225K. Riley Smith to Harry Grant is a very, very good upgrade, and that gives you the cover then to get Sanders Smith in for 18, and then round 19, hopefully Harry Grant backs up against the Knights. Grant is probably at the best price will be all season long. So if you're a Riley Smith owner, completely fine to move to him. If you're selling a Sanders Smith and you don't worry so much about your round 18 numbers, I think that's fine. Me personally, I'm just going to stick with Watson, and then I'm going to reassess in round 19 just to see if it feels like I need to get back to Grant, because Grant has also, picked up some niggles and injuries throughout the year as well. So he's no certainty to back up in round 19. Who should I... if I just saying I have 10 trades left with 300k in the bank, is my season looking cooked? Yeah, 10 trades is not great, but I'm not that far behind you. So keep the faith. Keep the faith. Wade Egan, not for me. In terms of hooker, it's not a bad place as well, I think, to nuff for the run home. Once you've got your Watson or your Grant in, Kalani going is someone who's got the second row forward hooker status, so he could actually be someone that you rotate well with Connor Watson. Someone earlier was thinking about selling Lockie Hubner. If you're not loving a downgrade cheapie, just go to enough, and if you've got Connor Watson, you can get a Kalani going, and then you've got that second row forward hooker status that you can swap the two players between as well. So just something to think about. But hooker's a position still for me where I think if you've got Brayley, Watson, Grant, McInnes, even Tom Starling's fine because he covers round 18. Round 19 you can reassess. Even if you've jumped on like a Kurt Donahue, he's actually been doing very well with a 5-round average of 65. I feel like if you own any of the guys on the screen here, you don't necessarily have to make a move to Harry Grant. Even if you own Jasper Vonga, because he's been able to start a hooker this week, it just feels like for me it's a position where you wait and just see what happens, because it's just not as it currently stands, it just hasn't been a very high upside position so far. And I don't think Wade Egan features in that category for me. What did he score last week? Yeah, he scored 48 points last week. He's kind of tailed off a bit. 5-round average of 48 versus the season average of 58. I think, he started well, but for me, Wade Egan's not in your top 2 or top 3 hookers. All right, I did have something on fullbacks, but I'll probably skip over this pretty fast just because my general thoughts on Drinkwater were to hold this week. But I said it earlier, I think Latrell probably will be, in my opinion, the third fullback that we want for the run home. Point of difference is probably someone like Dylan Edwards or maybe a Reece Walsh. Teddy and Pappy are locked in the 3 fullback spots for me. The third, I think, Latrell could be there. With Drinkwater and the team that they've named and versus the Titans this week, I think you just have to cop the price drop. Yes, he's got 129 break even, but if he comes out and scores 100, 115, the break even is going to reverse itself, and all of a sudden he'll probably maintain a price at 650, which is pretty similar to what Latrell or Dylan Edwards are going to end up being as well by the time you get to round 19, round 20. So that's just some of my general quick thoughts on fullbacks. Reece Walsh is good, but again, there's a bit of doubt with the Walsh. He very easily could get picked for Queensland for game 3 and all of a sudden not play round 18. And Drinkwater plays 18, and it's Melbourne, but it's a Melbourne team without their origin players. So I think for me personally, I'm just going to keep Drinkwater until round 20. And then round 20 we'll reassess, because that's when Latrell comes back, and he's a guy who I'm eyeing up. You've also got Dylan Edwards in round 20, who's got a good run of games as well. And he could be a potential point of difference option. But I think for now, just hold on to Drinky if you currently own him. You can see, of course, that no one owns Dylan Edwards, Reece Walsh, or Latrell really in the top ranked coaches. It's Teddy, Pappy, and Drinky are the main ones there. And in my opinion, don't buy Tom Trbojevic at the moment. That's all I'm going to say. All right, let's quickly take a look at matchups for this week. So we spoke about a couple of them. One that looked, and I'll rattle through these hopefully as quick as possible. Bulldogs edges versus Penrith this week looks pretty good. Penrith have conceded 45% of their tries on both edges. So looks good if you're buying a Carraz this week. Also looks good if you're getting a Kickout. Kickout coming up against his old club. There's always a bit of a bias there. If you were thinking of Hopewadi, I think this matchup is good for him at fullback. So if you look at Manly's left versus the Tigers' right side has conceded 53% of their tries. So, yeah, looks good for Hopewadi. Terrell May, we'll speak about him in the captaincy section, but the Tigers middle versus Manly. So Manly have conceded 23% of their tries through the middle. The only team that's conceded more through the middle is the Roosters. So someone like Terrell May, if you wanted to go with a safe VC, could actually be a not bad week for him. Terrell May did actually get very close to some attacking stats last week. He almost put Luai over for a try. So could be one of those weeks where Terrell May gets his attacking stat and gets to like 110, 115. I wouldn't be totally surprised by that. And these kind of stats also suggest that may happen as well. For the Knights, Lucas may be a good option against the Raiders. Raiders have conceded, 54% of tries on their right edge. So looks good for the Knights left edge. For the Broncos, so again, the reason why I was keen on Karapani, despite the Warriors being a good matchup, a good team, they've conceded, 51% of their tries, 61% of their tries on their right edge. So I like their matchup for Karapani. Could be even a play this week in your squads. Anyone who's looking at Val as a bit of a point of difference. So the Eels have conceded 51% of their tries to their right edge. So that could be really good prospects for a Val. Goal kicking, game at home, could be a good matchup for him. As it is for Herbie, Rabbitohs have conceded 48% of tries to their right edge. So Herbie could be very, very nice option this week. Storm players look good this week, so Pappy and Munster. So Sharks' right-hand side has conceded 53% of their tries, and you saw last week, they conceded a double to Karapani. They conceded, I think, 2 tries to Shibasaki last week. Reece Walsh was running right through that. I think Ezra Mam scored a try as well. So that whole right edge of Nico Hines, it wasn't really doing wonders for them defensively. So I can see people who, if you're thinking of your captaincy options for this week, I honestly, even though the Sharks in itself doesn't look like a great matchup, I can see potentially Pappy still being a very, very good solid captain option. Generally even just with the goal kicks, he gets between 65 to 70. If he gets another line break, another try assist, he can easily push 90 to 100. And we saw that the Sharks did leak a lot of points to Reece Walsh last week. I think Walsh ended up on 96. And we know that the Storm like to hit their left-hand side with Munster and Xavier Coates as well. Finally, Drinkwater, I wanted to call out. So the Titans have conceded, 43 and 44% of tries on their edges. Just could be good things for Drinkwater. And I think the benefit of having Clifford and Dearden in the halves, Drinky is probably more likely to float between both sides of the field. I can see Drinkwater potentially actually being a very good captain option this week. So that's some individual matchup thoughts, and we'll tee that into the captaincy chat. So captaincy didn't feel that easy this week. There's a lot of good options, but no one who jumped out. That's what happens when we have a week without Tedesco. So a little bit of a change as well. What I've got below me on the screen is I've got from NRL SuperCoach Stats, best website ever. I've got the rank in terms of points conceded for all teams to various positions. What you can see is the table. I think it's the table that's on the left. That's the one that is just in looking at the last 5 rounds. And then the one to the right of that is for the entire season. The reason I wanted to bring that up is just to see some more recent trends. So, for example, if you look at the last 5 rounds, look at the Cowboys. They're ranking first for conceding points to centers, 5/8s, halfbacks, second rowers, third for front rowers, fifth for hookers, fourth for fullbacks. They've been so leaky in the last 5 rounds. So it was good to just see that. You can see some differences between the teams over the season, over the last 5 rounds as well. So I've just tried to reflect that a little bit more as well. So, for example, if you look at the Sharks, over the season, they look pretty good defensively, but they've conceded the most points to opposing front rowers and also to the 5/8s. So, again, thinking of Munster. So, for this week, what I'm thinking for VC, I think I'm leaning 2 ways for VC. I'm leaning either going a high upside guy like Garrick or Karaz, or your safe option in a Terrell May or a Payne Haas. As we spoke about before, I don't think Terrell May's matchup individually against the Manly Seagulls is that bad of a matchup. The stats don't really suggest it over the last 5 rounds, but Terrell May, we know, could just be a very safe VC, scores maybe 80 to 90 points. And in a week where, you've got lots of players on the bye in the Roosters, you could just take the free VC loot and you could just lock in 90 points from a Terrell May. The alternate thinking is chase ceiling and go with like a Garrick and hope he gets like maybe 110, 115. I do think Garrick on the wing is much, much better than at center. He's got the attacking upside. And Turbo, I don't generally think is glue hands. I think Turbo is someone who's happy to cash and pass. So I do think the matchup against Tigers is good. The slight issue I have with Garrick is Manly. Manly have just been so inconsistent, and the Tigers week to week, sometimes it's also hard to predict what Tigers outfit is going to show up. So I've just got this nagging feeling that on paper Garrick looks like a good VC, but he could just be totally disappointing. So yeah, I'm not sure if I'm ready to go in VC Garrick. He just feels like someone who can just score like 70 and then I don't know what to do with it. At least with a May or a Payne Haas, you know that they're more likely going to score probably around the 80 to 90. But VC Garrick, I think, is probably the obvious one. I'm just a little bit unsure of what Garrick will deliver or what Manly will deliver. Put it this way, they've burnt me a lot this season. For your captaincy picks, Lomax, revenge game, playing back at the Dragons' home stadium. So it'll be the first time the crowd will probably be booing him a lot. If Eels were full strength with Moses, I think I'd be more likely to go there. But it just concerns me a bit what Eels team is going to be showing up on the weekend. And the Dragons are coming off a bye as well. Dragons are a bit desperate for a win as well. So if I had to tip that game, I'd tip the Dragons. So again, it gives me a bit of concern with Lomax. Herbie is definitely a very, very safe captaincy option. So we've seen his work rate is very, very high, 106 points last week without any major attack. I just feel like the Rabbitohs, again, I don't think the Rabbitohs will be that bad in terms of their, not defense, but the team itself looks better this week. They've got Cody Walker back. They've got Campbell Graham back. The Dolphins are also missing Jack Bostock. So whether that affects the left wing or the left-hand side for the Dolphins will remain to be seen. I don't know if I'll be sticking the captaincy on Herbie. He could be a VC option. I think they play on Saturday. Could be a VC Herbie, and then maybe you go try to captain one of your front rowers. Captain one of your fullbacks. Kolomatongi is always a solid captaincy option as well. Then you've got Pappy and Drinkwater on Sunday. As it currently stands, I've got the captaincy on Drinkwater. I know this might be mad because he could very much, and who knows what the Cowboys will deliver. But again, I'm thinking Cowboys are desperate for a win. They got the Origin players back. They're versing a Titans team that has no Jaden Campbell. I think Purdue being at centers and Clifford back in the halves is also good for Drinkwater. And in terms of the stats, the Titans in general have been pretty bad at opposing fullbacks. 7th over the season and 5th over the last 5 rounds. So I think between Pappy and Drinkwater, I'm actually thinking of captaining Drinkwater. Honestly, if you can take the free loop as well this week, I'm honestly not even opposed to a VC Pappenhausen captain Drinkwater. Like, I'm in this position where I've got Connor Watson and Sanders Smith. So I've got someone who I can chuck the captaincy on until the very, very last game. So I'm not totally opposed to going VC Pappy, captain Drinkwater as my combo. I actually might talk myself into that, to be honest. Seeing in the chat here, people are saying VC Lomax, captain Drinkwater, VC Garrick, captain Herbie. 2 p.m. Sunday in Melbourne does look very tempting as well for Pappenhausen. I feel like this is the one thing we need to do with the captaincy chat. Got to check the weather. Melbourne's weather on Sunday, 2 p.m. 12 degrees, mostly cloudy. That's not terrible. It's pretty cold. What's the weather in... who are the other... They're playing in Townsville, are they? Okay. Townsville weather, Sunday. Ooh, interesting. At 4 p.m, it's saying mostly... Oh, wait, that's Wednesday, sorry. Sunday's light rain at 4 o'clock. Okay. It's a bit of light rain. May not be great for Drinkwater, but let's see how the weather changes. Light rain's not that bad. So I wouldn't be totally off put by that. But yeah, I'm not completely locked into where I'd be sticking the VC and C's on. As you can see, I'm a bit all over the shop. If lockout was in 5 minutes and I had to decide, I think I probably would end up just going VC Garrick and probably then captain Drinkwater. But I could talk myself into VC Pappenhausen, captain Drinkwater. VC Herbie is also fine. But again, I'm just trying to think. I either chase these really high upside goal kicking guys like Garrick, Drinkwater, Pappy. If not, stick it on someone safe like a May, Haas, or a Koloamatangi. So yeah, a bit undecided at the moment. VC Garrick probably is the natural one, and then Captain Drinkwater or Pappy. So that's currently where my head's at. But I don't know how helpful that all was. But look, I'll leave you all to make your decisions because I know a lot of you out there are ranked higher than me. So yeah, who knows if my advice is even worth anything anyway. So that probably brings us to the end. I will quickly show you guys my team and what I'm thinking for this week. But yeah, at this juncture, please do give the stream a like if you've enjoyed it as well. So yeah, I'm actually pretty set on trades for this week. So also I probably won't be able to do a final thoughts video on Thursday this week. So hence why I'm getting into my trades this week, but I don't see my trades really changing this week anyway. So Fletcher Sharp is out for Karaz. So that's already happened. Probably the most obvious trade. I've already got Lomax. I've already got Herbie. So Karaz felt like the natural option for me to get in. And then I have got another trade up my sleeve. Last week I was talking about going Tino to Kickow. I don't think I'll be doing that anymore. I just think with Tino, now that I held him through last week and the price drop, he's got another high break even, but I think he's someone who I can cover in round 18. And also the fact that he's already lost a bit of money, I'm happy to just keep him and then just see what happens with him longer term. And I don't think, like, Kickout's got a low break even this week, but I don't think I need to rush in Kickout this week. It's not going to be the worst thing in the world if I don't have him for this round. But I do have a plan to get Kickout next week. So what I'm thinking of doing for this week is Lawson out for Karapani as well. We spoke about it a little bit before. I just think it's good to get in that extra round 18 number. I think Karapani is just a good trade-in option as well for the run home to play on matchups. So let me just quickly look at Karapani. Where is he? There he is. So I'll bring in Karapani. I don't even need to play Karapani this week as well. So I am thinking, do I need to make that trade? But it feels like it's almost a bit too obvious. So I'm better off doing it. So if I do that potential trade as well of Lawson to Karapani, what I'm thinking of for next week is doing, so this is for round 18. So if I show you my team for round 18, if Sanders Smith plays, I'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I'll have 16 for round 18, one of which is Koloamatangi, who may not be there because he may be playing for New South Wales. So let's call it 15. And then of that 15, one is King Tongia, who isn't really that great of an option. So let's call it 14. So, and even Hubner, not that great. So let's call it 13 good options for round 18. So I think what I'd probably be doing next week, I'll probably be trading Sarko. So he was always for me a stepping stone to Karaz. The Fletcher Sharp injury, of course, changes things a little bit. So I think next week what my decision will be is I either go Isako to maybe a Mark Nwangani Tawasi, or I go Isako to kick out via Dylan Lucas. So I switch Lucas down to center wing, and then I get Isako to kick out next week, and that should be fine money-wise because Isako's 726k. Even if he pumps out like a 30-40 and kick out pumps out like a 90, their prices will more or less be even, and I've already got 140k in the bank anyway. So I think I'll just need to make a decision next week whether I get Nwangani Tawasi or I get Kickout. And then in round 19, whoever I don't get out of those two guys, I get instead in for Tarpany. So, because I think with Tarpany, I don't look at him as a run home guy. As you saw before, I don't think he's in my final run home squad. So what I'd be thinking of doing for round 19, because he's on the bye that week, I'd go Tarpany out. I'd swap either Tino or Koloamatangi up to my front row. I then would get either Kickout, who I missed in round 18, or I then swap Dylan Lucas back to second row and then get in the centre wing, which could be a Nwangani Tawasi, it could be a Val Holmes. I think I'm leaning of doing Kickout next week just because then it gives me the option to get a centre wing later down the track. Or I could just wait and get Angus. If I don't get Kickout next week, I could get Angus instead. So there's a few permutations and things to go there, but I don't think it changes my plans for this week. I think I'll just get in Karapani, get him for round 18 and for round 19. That leaves me with 12 trades for this week. if I have to trade Karapani back out down the track once he's made some money, I think I've got enough trades to do so, because I'm happy with Connor Watson at hooker. I think the front row is fine. I think the second row forward's not too bad. I'll maybe use a trade to get back to Cleary. My centres are actually looking pretty set now with Farnworth, Karaz, Lomax, Garrick. And then if I get in Lucas there, or if I get in like a Nwangani Tuasi, and then I've got Drinky, Pappy, Teddy. So I think I might be able to manage with the 12 trades, but of course, injury can always strike, and yeah, who knows what's going to happen. But that's my trade thoughts for this week and for next week as well. Bit of lag. Okay, all good. I'm going to take a couple of questions, and then we'll probably wrap up the stream there. So let's see how we go. Is Isako an option? I'm going to assume that's for captaincy. Not a bad shout, but again, the Rabbitohs a bit more full strength this week, so I'm not sure. Yeah, and Isako doesn't have the best work rate. I know that doesn't matter. He's a high upside winger, but he scored a try last week for 65. I just don't know if I'd feel comfortable captaining Isako myself. Is there a world where Lawson plays round 18 due to the loss of Val Holmes for Origin? That's something I didn't even think about. I might just have to go back and look at what happened in round 15 for the Dragons when Holmes was on the bye. So let me have a quick look at that actually. Round 15 Dragons team list. Because I guess they've got Tui Pelotu back, and Tui Pelotu was out for round 15. Yeah, so what they would have is they could put in, so the team list for round 15 had Lawson, Sully, Sugranis, and Terrell Sloan. Sloan could be there, and then Lawson could become Tui Pelotu, and actually, it doesn't matter, because Corey Allen would just come in on the wing anyway. And I think this Nick Sugranis would maybe be the option they put in at centre. Or maybe they put in a Corey Allen at centre and put in Lawson. Maybe Lawson plays. Even then still, Lawson is a bit of an AE nightmare anyway. So I'm happy to maybe just get rid of Lawson in the first place. So yeah, I think I'd be fine to just get rid of Lawson. Thoughts on Chris Randall as a pod in the hooker position from Marco. Yeah, shout out to the Insight Fantasy Sports guys for shouting out Randall a few weeks ago. Look, he's got a negative break even, 491 Ks, dual second row forward hooker. Apart from 18, plays every single game. The only concern is that in round 19, after the bye, Dave Fafita will come back for the Titans. And then who knows what's the role going to be for Randall. That's just the only thing I'm not comfortable with Chris Randall. The last few weeks it's worked out well. But yeah, I think just with Fafita coming back in round 19, it just gives me a pause for concern there. Would I trade in Kickout or Clark? Already have the cover for 18. I think Jet, because you've mentioned you've got the cover for 18, I think I'd take Aaron Clark. Like, Kickout's good, but he is still volatile. Aaron Clark is easy 70 points every single week. So I think, yeah, if you feel like you're okay for 18, Aaron Clark absolutely would be who I'd be going for instead. Who are the downgrade hookers? He's not really a downgrade anymore. It was Kurt Donahue. Otherwise, I think at the moment I'd just be going for enough in like a Kalani going, to be honest. Or a Sam Healy for the Warriors if he gets another run at some point. Would it be smart to save trades and keep Isako instead of trading for Lomax? I think that just comes down to whether you think, well, firstly, if you think Lomax is a run-home keeper, and if you think Lomax backs up in round 19. Isako is tricky because, like, Herbie's fine. I think Herbie's proven enough this season that he's a season keeper. Isako, he's benefited from a few good games. He will miss round 21 with another bye. If I'm having a look at the individual matchups in those weeks, I'd almost argue that Isako's games are better until round 21. When round 21 hits and Isako's got his bye, that might be the time that maybe you can move to Lomax. Because Lomax will come back to Penrith and the Raiders. I don't think you need to sell Isako to Lomax this week. Lomax will have Penrith and Raiders. Isako will have Sharks and Cowboys. Definitely think Sharks and Cowboys is better. So maybe Isako to Lomax in round 21 could be your play. Play Couchman or Tarpany. I think if I had to play one of those two, who are the Raiders versing this week? Knights, and the Dragons versing Parramatta. That's a tough one actually, because I think, Tarpany's output just has been down. I still think I'd play Tarpany and just pick the guy from the better team. Not really much science behind that answer, to be honest, unfortunately. Wooden Spoon says, I haven't been watching you as much as since I had started my own content, but you're still my goat. Keep it up. Oh, thank you, Wooden Spoon. And that's good to see you're making content. I will see if I can check out your stuff after this. But yeah, guys, do go and check out Wooden Spoon SC stuff if you want to see some more content. Can never get enough content for Supercoach, I can tell you that much. Is Metcalf a keep? Got a great draw. Absolutely. If you've got Metcalf, he's absolutely a hold. Got a very, very good run home. All right, guys, probably going to wrap it up there. We've been going on for about close to an hour and a half, so good solid stream. Spoke through plenty. Hopefully you all enjoyed that one. Please do give it a thumbs up as well, as I keep mentioning. Hopefully not too bored of me saying that. Go check me out on Instagram, Patreon, all that good stuff. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and I will see you all in the next one.